Back to Just Keep Parenting, everybody. Glad you could join us again. We're going to be on page, we're going to be working from the book, Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline. And last week we talked about aggression and some things that you could listen to and, know when we're being aggressive or not, right? So you could look back at that one if you'd like to. Today we're going to be talking about assertiveness. We've talked about passivity. We've talked about aggression. We've talked about the flip-flop and what that looks like. So today we're going to talk about clarity, right, which is being assertive. Because we know that the goal of assertiveness is clear communication. We've heard lots of people throughout the years talk about we just need to be more assertive, right? And assertiveness is straightforward statements about my thoughts, my wishes, and my feelings. And so we can't be assertive, right, if we think a lot about what others think of me, or if I fret about what others will do or say in response to what I do or say. And that's really hard for a lot of us, right? Many of us have blue personalities, which means that we're peacemakers and we don't want to hurt people's feelings, right? But in that wanting of not hurting other people's feelings, we leave things confused. We leave things unclarified, if you will, especially with children. So, for example, if I'm out with my friends and I say, you probably want Thai because you always want Thai, right? That's giving the idea that I'm thinking for them, right? And I don't need to think for them. They're adults. Obviously, with children, it's a little bit different. Everyone loves pizza. Why not you, right? I'm trying to control them, right? And so if I focus on myself, right, I'd really like pizza tonight. Right? You're just stating your wishes, you're stating your desires, you're stating your thoughts. And you're exercising, if you go back, you're exercising the power of attention, which we've talked about as well, right? We want to focus on what we want to have happen. Now, that does not mean that I'm going to throw a fit if I don't, if the group doesn't choose pizza, but I have at least stated, right, what I'd like to have happen. I remember I was with a group of girlfriends once, and somebody said, well, you just need to make the decision because you're good at that. Well, I'm good at that because I have to make a lot of decisions, right? And she said, well, we have to make a lot of decisions either as well. And sometimes it's just not fun for us to always make decisions. And I'm like, well, but I have to make all my own decisions because I live by myself, right? And so if we can all take a share in that, right? Just focus on what we want to have happen, then we can come to a meeting of the mind, so to speak, right? So if we're assertive as parents, these are some things that it will look like and sound like. So we state our wants, our needs, and our expectations clearly and simply, right? So if a child has a pair of scissors, I'm not going to say to them, ooh, that doesn't look like a very good idea to me. Maybe you should give those to me, right? If I'm going to be assertive, I'm going to say, oh, scissors can cause problems. So I'm going to take the scissors and I'll get you another pair of scissors that you can use that are plastic. These could really hurt, right? They understand, and we've taken the scissors and we've given them some new ones. There's been no choices. There's been no, wishy-washiness, right? The second thing that we do is we make sure that our nonverbal communications match our verbal communications, right? If we're too casual, then the kids are like, nah, it's not time for me to do what I need to do now. If we're too intrusive, right, and then they get defensive. And so when nonverbal and verbal cues match, the child knows that we're meaning what we're saying, right, that we mean what we say. And they read facial expression, they read tone of voice, and they read gestures, right? And gestures can often help them understand if they don't know the vocabulary that we're using or whatnot. And so I'm just thinking about a child yesterday that is learning English, right? We use a lot of gestures. We use a lot of pointing with him so that he can understand. And yesterday he was very he was frustrated at the teacher because she couldn't understand what he was wanting to do with this robot that he was building, and he started to scream. And so I came in from the booth and I just said to him in Japanese, I said, sweetie, she doesn't know what screaming, and I gave a little, she doesn't know what that means. So if you show her, then she understands what you want. And he said, can I speak to you in Japanese? I said, yeah, speak to me in Japanese. He said, I just want to make a face. Right? So I said, well, she doesn't understand what the word cow, which is face, she doesn't understand that. So can you show her? He said, oh, yeah. So he said, he points to that, right? And so that to me was just like this beautiful thing, even though it was a different language, right, that we were speaking in, it was very clear. And he wanted her to understand, but she couldn't understand. And so as he added gestures, she totally got it. So the third thing that we can do is give children choices when they really have choices, right? Are you ready for a nap? Implies they have a choice. But if I say to them, oh, it's 2:00, it's time for your nap, sweetie, jump up in their bed, right? It's not mean, it's not aggressive, right? And it surely isn't passive by asking them, are you ready for a nap, right? No, I'm not. And my teachers struggle with this. Is everybody ready? And the kids are like, no. And they rewind, right, which is one of our tools. And we talk about, I'm so sorry, that's not what I should have said. What I should have said is, everybody needs to get ready because we are ready to go, right? And so state it clearly and simply for them. The next one is to give commands that contain usable, helpful information and avoid asking rhetorical questions, right? So, for example, are you being nice? Is that something a nice person would do? It's like, well I don't know, right? And so as we use concepts of goodness, badness, and being polite, that confuse children. That's not very polite, right? So we need to state what it is. When the teachers say pay attention to a 4-year-old, it's like, what does that look like, right? That rhetoricalness. And so as I say to them, what do you want them to do? When you say pay attention, what should they be doing? And they're like, well, I need them to be sitting. I need them to have their voices off. And okay, then state it that way, right? As they get older, they understand that. But when they're younger, they don't understand what those little rhetorical things that we use all the time mean, right? So help them to do that. The other thing that we think about is owning and expressing our own feelings to children, right? And so if we say things like, I feel angry when you interrupt, versus look what you made me do, then we feel a little bit more assertive about that, right? And so sorry, I was just interrupted. So now my mind is going crazy. But we own those feelings, right? And we express them to children. I feel angry when this happens, when you interrupt me on the phone. As soon as I'm finished on the phone, I'll get back to you, right? But look what you made me do. No, we are in charge of us. We've just transferred all of our power over to the child at that point, right? And the sixth thing that we do is we show respect for our children and enforce those rules without teasing, without embarrassing, without shaming or bullying, right? Those things are all on the passive side of things or on the aggressive side of things, right? So being respectful means that we focus on improving behavior rather than punishing the children. So things that I wouldn't say would be, why did you hit her? They normally can't answer that, right? It was kind of like, she made me mad, so I hit her, right? There was a reaction. There wasn't a response. And then we say, is that how we treat people? Well, I just did because she made me mad, right? So we have to be not rhetorical with them, and we have to state simply what we want, that focus on the power of attention, right? And so, sweetie, that's not how we treat people. If we want people to play with us, then we ask questions, we say things like this, we treat them like this, right? But when we hit them, that means that they may not play with us again because that hurts them, right? So helping them understand on their level, not on our level, which is what I see the teachers doing a lot. They treat the kids like they're talking to their people at their age. And we have to figure out how to talk to children at their age, at their developmental understanding, right? So one of the things that I hear sometimes in the lab school is we hear some begging. please do this. This is what you need to be doing. Please do this, right? We hear some bribing, right? If you do this, then we can go outside a little early, right? And not usually from the teachers in the lab school, but I do hear it from parents, right, during pickup and whatnot, some screaming, not very loud screaming. But we're not being assertive when we use those things, right? And so when we hear ourselves doing that, then if we can stop and say, wait a minute, what am I not doing? I'm not focusing on what I want to have happen, right? So when we focus on the power of attention, that makes it better for us. If you look on page 85, if you have the book, it has a chart. And it just has a calendar, right? And it says passive communication, and it gives a percentage. It has aggressive communication, and it gives a percentage. And then it also has assertive communication, and it gives a percentage. And so what they would like you to do is to be able to kind of check yourself throughout the week, right? How much of my time, of my communication did I spend in each of those areas? And then in chapter 12, they actually come back and visit it again. And it's fun to see the progress that we've made, right? Just being aware of what's coming out of our mouth and how it's coming out of our mouth will help us be better communicators, have better relationships, and be better caregivers of children. So let's work on that this week. I'm going to work on it as well. And just kind of check myself. Is this aggressive? Is this passive? Or is this assertive? Good luck, everybody. Just keep parenting. We'll talk to you next time.